So one of the parts of your reading for this week was game object method functions, and I'm going to go over some of these. So all of the functions that you can use with a game object are listed here. They're all defined in the class, the game object class. So what you have to do though is you have to declare a variable that's type game object and then use the dot notation to use the methods. So for example here, we have a game object variable that we call dot. Set that to be a circle. So what it's going to do is draw a circle at 50-50 of size 10 on the screen, and that circle is connected to this variable called dot. We can then have a string variable because getType returns a string, and it's going to either return the string circle, rect, line, text, or image, which is the different types of game objects that you can possibly create in code 12, and that's what it's going to return. So if I say string type equals dot, that's our variable, dot getType, that will then return the type, which in this case is circle, the string circle, and type is going to then have a value circle. And if you were to print it out, you'll see the word circle come out on your screen. Next we have set size. What that does is it sets a new width and height, or a width and height of your game object. For a circle, we know that the width and height, well, if you have a different width and height, you end up getting an ellipse instead of a circle. Rectangles, it'll change the height and width. A line, text objects, this all, if you want to change the size, you use the set size method. So here's an example. We have a circle that we're creating called blob, and you can change the size. So it starts at size 30. So that means it's a circle at 30, but now here the height's going to be 50 and the width is going to be 30, so it's going to make an ellipse. GetWidth is a function that returns the width of the object that you're talking about. So if I have here a title that is text, zombie attack, and I want to get the width of that, then what we will get back is 10, because it's height and width. Height is 30, width is 10, you'll get back a 10. GetHeight does the same thing, returns height. Remember, any function or method that returns a value, that value has to be used. So that's why we are assigning these values to another variable in order to print it or do some other calculation with it. Set X speed. What that does is it changes the location on the screen of your object. So if you draw, say, a circle on the screen and you want it to move at a certain speed from the left to the right, say, you can set the speed, and every time update is called, it will increment the X value by that amount. So for example here, we say we have a dot that's a circle. It starts out at 0, 50, and it's size 10. And we're going to set the X speed to 0.3. That means every time the program runs update, which is 60 frames a second, it's going to change the X coordinate by 0.3. So it'll be 0.3, 0.6, 0.9, 1.2, and so it'll be moving across the screen. If you use a negative value, then it will go to the left. Same with set Y speed, that's going to have your object go up and down. It will change, you can change your Y speed so that automatically it moves up or down at a constant rate because it's moving over, or it's moving up and down by 0.3 or negative 0.3 in this case, pixels each time that update gets called. GetXSpeed allows you to get the current speed that you have. So we can maybe set the speed to something and then you can get the speed to print it. Or get the speed, maybe you want to increase your speed by a certain percentage, you get the current speed and then you can increment it by some amount given whatever the current speed is. Same with getYSpeed. Okay, look at these examples. Align, you probably won't need that right now, but it allows you to align objects on the screen. Set text allows you to change the text that you have in a text object. So here we'll have maybe message is waiting for the click, that's text that goes out there, and it's a game object called message, and then later on we're going to change it to you clicked. So every time it comes up again, it'll say you clicked, where the first time it said waiting for a click. Get text will give you back the text that's in a text object. ToString is a way to print out, you don't have to worry about this one right now either. It's a way to print the value of a game object. Set fill color will let you change the color of your object. So we can set the fill color to blue. Here we didn't have any color, but even if we had, we can change the color. Set fill color RGB allows you to pick a number between three numbers, between 0 and 255. That's how RGB works. So you can get all different kinds of hues instead of just red or blue or green. Now you can get combinations. I'll show you an example of that later. Set line color lets you change the color of your line. Same with set line color RGB. Set line width that's obvious, lets you change the width. Set image, if you have an image, it lets you change the image. So here you can change from hero ping to hero hurt ping, and then the image will change. Set layer, we don't have to worry about that right now either, but it'll allow you to have different layers. And get layer, you can then also delete your object. You can make an object clickable. I'm kind of going quick through these because we'll look at these more later. I just want you to be familiar with what they are, and you're welcome to read through and see what they all do. If we click on an object, we can check for that if the object's been clicked on. Okay, if the object has been hit, if one object hits another object, we can test for that as well. So here we have a block and a dot, and you can say, and we don't have if statements yet, but we will eventually, and you can see that if dot hit block, then you do something. So that comes back as a true or false. That's a Boolean function. Okay, so, and then we have all the Java math functions. So now I'm going to show you some examples. So here is a program, a class called bars. You can see that we've defined several game objects, bar 1, bar 2, bar 3, bar 4, bar 5. This is only using the start method. We don't have an update method, which means it's just going to run once through the code. But what we've done here is have a little bit of code, and then we use pause. And what pause does is it pauses your program, and then you can continue when you're ready to continue. So what it's done is it's already created these bars and it's paused. So it hasn't, it's drawn, what did it draw? It has rectangles. Bar 1, bar 2, bar 3, bar 4, bar 5, and they are all right on top of each other. So there are 5 rectangles right on top of each other. So did you notice I can move this prompt around? Okay. I can also up here stop the program if I want to. But now it says it's been paused, so I'm going to click OK. And now, if I want, I can resume. It's paused again, and I can resume. So over here, it is adding the X to bar 1. It's adding 10 to all the X's. Okay, so let's resume. So now it added the X to each one, but it's added, okay, to bar 2, it's adding bar X plus 10. To bar 3, it's adding bar 2X plus 10. So you end up with these bars going across the screen like this. Now it says it's paused again right here at line 20. I guess I should have the numbers up. Okay, now what's it going to do? It's going to set the fill color. So bar 1, it's going to set it to red. Bar 2, orange. Bar 3, green. And bar 5, blue. So bar 3 is going to stay yellow. So it's paused. So if I click OK, and then I have to say resume, now we have the different colors. You see that set fill color of each of the different bars. And now we're paused on line 27. Next, what it's going to do is it's going to change the height. So whatever the height is of each bar, it's going to add 10. So bar 2, it's going to take bar 1, add 10, and that's going to be the new height. So what it's going to do is set the new size. So the size, they're still going to be 10 wide, but their height is going to change. So let's see what happens when I resume. There you go. So you can see that each of the bars has gotten bigger than the last, and it's exactly what the code says here. And a copy of this code is also in week 4, so you can look through this yourself as well. Okay, I'm going to close this one, and let's open. Okay. Here's the next example. This is a class called drops. It has a variable that we have max size, and what it's going to do when it calls start is it's going to ask the user what is the maximum drop size. So whatever we give it for a maximum is the largest drop we're going to see. And then it's going to go into update. Remember, update is called 60 times a second. So everything we do here, it's going to loop around and keep on doing it over and over and over. So it's going to create a random X between 0 and 100, a random Y between 0 and 100, and then it's going to draw a circle at that random X, the random Y, and it's going to make a random size between 1 and the max size that we gave it. And it's going to make them all blue. So we say that the maximum size is 30. There it goes. So it's drawing all these different dots. I'm going to pause it. All these different size dots in random places, and it will keep going forever and ever and ever and ever. Okay, I can also just do frame by frame, and you can see each dot being drawn once. Let's start over. Let's make it 20. Okay, if I pause, you can then see each dot coming up once, one at a time. Okay, and it'll just go on forever and ever and ever until we stop it. Here is, I'm going to stop this. Okay, so let's look at the code first. We have a class called data fields. It has an X start and a Y start. X start is 10, Y start is 90. And then we have two different game objects, one called ball, one called block. Now we haven't initialized them or anything, we've just declared them, and we've declared them as class level variables. So they can be used, all four of these variables can be used both in start and in update. So here we come into start, and it's going to create a ball that's a circle that starts at 10, 90 and is size 10. Then it's going to create a block that's a rectangle that will size 10 by 10 at 60, 10. So what's going to happen is update is then going to be called at 60 frames a second. So the first time it's going to take the X and it's going to add 0.05. Now we could have done this with X speed, but instead we're just going to manipulate the actual X variable and the Y variable. Y is going to go by -0.1. So the ball is going to be moving, it's going to be over and up. And the block, it's just going to be adding to the Y. So the X is going to stay the same, but it's going to be going down. So let's see what happens. Here we go. And it's just going to keep going forever until we pause it. So if I start again, here we go. So the block is going down and the circle is going up. And it will just keep on moving. And you can see it's moving by very small amount so that it goes slowly. The smaller this number, the slower it'll go. You can see too that the rectangle moved twice as fast as the ball. Okay. Okay. Let's stop this. Okay, let's look at the code first. So what's this doing? In this program, there's nothing in start. It just wants to do updates. So we don't need to initialize anything. What's going to happen is we're going to create a dot that's a circle at a random spot. And then we're going to change the fill color and set the line width, removing the outline to 0. So when you first start, there is an outline, but we're going to get rid of the outline. And then we're going to create a size. We're going to change the size depending on what the Y coordinate is. So make a dot at a random location, set its color based on its position, set its size based on its Y coordinate, and then each time we come through, it's creating a new dot. You can see that by we have a new variable every time. It happens to be called dot, but the first time through we have a dot, it draws it. Then it comes through, it has a new dot, it draws it in the new spot. So let's see what happens here. We'll restart. Here we go. So now we'll pause. So that's what it's just changing the RGB here by different amounts so that we have gradient in colors. Okay, now we can look at the emoji one. It's a little more complicated here. I think I need to open it. Okay, let's look at the code. So we have a head size, a distance between the eyes, and we have these different objects: head, left eye, right eye, nose, and mouth. So each of these objects is going to be drawn, and notice that things are drawn in order, so what you draw last gets put on top. Okay, so it creates a head, it figures out the size that it wants for the eyes, it makes a left eye, a right eye, a nose, and a mouth. So that's the whole start part, and then it's going to ask enter the X coordinate for the face. So this is what it's done over here. It drew the first face, and now it's asking for the X coordinate of the face. What's going to happen when I give it a new X coordinate is it's then going to figure out where the face should go, and it's going to ask me for the distance between the eyes, and then it's going to ask me if I want a nose, and it's going to draw the face again. So if the X coordinate is at 50, I think it's already at 50, at 30, it moves the face. But now it's going to say enter the eye distance. We'll say 20. And it moves them across. And then do I want a nose? No, it takes the nose away. So now enter a new X coordinate. the distance between the eyes, and yes, I'll take a nose. So that's what that's doing. And every time that update is running, it's going to ask for these inputs and recalculate the face. Notice also that over here on the right side, you can see the values, the current values of all the variables. So you can see that head size is currently 40, eye distance is 10. You can see that the head is a circle at 80/25. You can see all of the data. So if you're ever trying to figure out why your program's not working, this can be very helpful to see the values here. Okay, and finally, I'm going to do orbit here. Okay, this one is making an orbit. It's using a lot of math, which we don't have to quite understand, but it's creating a sun and a planet, game objects. It's figuring out the mass. It's calculating the speeds that it's going to use and gravity, and what it does is it changes the distance from the sun and redraws the planet according to all of those equations, which we don't have to necessarily understand, but know that it's possible. I can go frame by frame here, and you can see the values changing. So we can just go frame by frame if we want and see what's happening. Or we can resume and just watch it do its orbit. So you can do all kinds of things on your screen in your programs, but it's not that difficult. Okay, so for program 4, you are going to just play around with some game objects, maybe create a little picture on your screen or make things move, make circles move, and put up some text and do different things with it. Use several of the different methods that are for game object. And then I also ask you to do some string, some manipulation of strings using the string variables, concatenate some strings, maybe do a 2 uppercase, 2 lowercase, and print the values out. And then maybe some math, use some of the math functions. But mostly try to experiment with the game object and see what you can get done. So have a great week. If you have any questions, please email me. If you want to come to my office hours, that would be on Thursday from 4 to 5 on Zoom, and I always put the Zoom link on as an announcement on Canvas, so you would see that and you can come join me, but I'm always available through email as well. Have a great week.